complaining in any way, shape or form. Yeah, in between.
Were you good this one?
So then we'll wait for the microphone.
Where's the camera? They won't clear the camera. Where's the camera? You are.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Sport Park and the 2014 Volleyball England AGM. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. In the event of a fire, exit through the door behind you to my left, straight outside and assemble on the car park. If I could ask you to turn your mobile phones off, please. There's nothing more irritating than a phone going off in the middle of a meeting, so at least turn to silent, but I prefer them switched off. We are live streaming today, as you can see. The microphones are permanently on. If anyone from the floor intends to get up and speak, could you please come to the microphone in the centre of the room? If somebody genuinely can't get up, there are some mobile microphones that can be brought to you. But if you can, we would prefer if you came up here so that the camera can see you clearly. That's the camera to my right. We need to appoint tellers today, and if I could suggest that Sandra Andrews, Howard Thompson and Daniel Thompson act as tellers. Is everybody happy with that? Thank you. Apologies for absence. Do we have the list of apologies? Thank you. There we have apologies from Marjana Bogdanovic, John Boughton, Janet Inman, Steve Evans, Paul Bohannon and Team Northumbria. Do we have any other apologies? Thank you. We now need to confirm the eligibility to vote. Do we have the numbers? Okay. Just while we're waiting for the numbers of eligible voters, there are 6 proxy votes that have had to have been rejected that were received after the deadline. That's Loughborough Volleyball Club, Kings Langley Volleyball Club, Spelthorne Volleyball Club, Spalding Volleyball Club, who didn't follow due process, and one other due to fees not being paid, and that was Coventry and Warwick Riga Volleyball Club. And one final one that we received this morning that has had to have been rejected is from Marden Volleyball Club. So they're the proxies that have had to have been rejected because they didn't come in due time as per the articles. In terms of people eligible to vote, there are 26 people eligible to vote, and there is a total of 126 votes that can be cast. Okay. So, if we moving on to the minutes of the annual general meeting held on the 20th of July 2014 that have been circulated. You've all read them. I propose that the minutes are accepted as a true and accurate record. I'm working on past practice that we wouldn't want to go to a poll vote for things like the minutes. Don't pull faces at me, Lenny. So you have a white voting card if you are eligible to vote, and I propose we use that card for voting on issues such as this. So I propose that the minutes are accepted as a true and accurate record of the meeting. Can I see those in favour? Can the tellers count, please? Okay. Any against? Any abstentions? 1. We now move on to the annual report. Again, you've either had a copy posted to you or you've seen it on the website. Again, I think thanks to the staff for pulling together such a professional report once again. I don't know whether anyone has any questions to ask before we move to acceptance of the report. Charlie?
One question on the annual report, which I have reported to the Chief Executive. The list of accredited clubs is incorrect. And I think that is a very serious mistake to list an accredited club which isn't accredited, isn't affiliated. Yeah, and I think we ought to take more care in future to make sure when we say a club is accredited that they are.
Yes, I've seen your note, Charlie. Lisa, do you want to comment?
Yeah, thank you, Charlie, for raising it on page 21 for members present. There has been a mistake. I do apologise, that will be corrected, Charlie, so thank you for raising it.
Thank you. Have we any more questions? Okay. I propose acceptance of this year's annual report. Can I see those in favour? White card. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. We now move on to the financial report, and if I can ask Dirk George to come and say a few words on the financial report. Dirk.
Hello everyone. In response to a request by one of the members at last year's AGM to show more meaningful information than the statutory audited set of accounts, we have changed the format of the financial information shown in the annual report. The financial commentary, prepared by our Finance Director John Boughton, summary profit and loss account and balance sheet figures for the year ended the 31st of March 2014 can be found on pages 28 and 29 of the annual report. These detail Volleyball England matching the profit target of approximately 20k set by the board at the start of the financial year, in addition to maintaining a healthy balance sheet, which is vital to the business to continue as a going concern. For anyone who is interested, in The Devil Behind the Detail, a complete copy of the 2013-14 audited accounts are available from the Volleyball England website in PDF form alongside the annual report. The last page of the financial report, page 30, provides a graphical summary of both whom we derive our income from during the year, and secondly, what areas of the business this went towards. That concludes the financial report. I'd answer any questions if anybody has any.
Could you just say who you are when you...
I'm Alan Dale. We're a volleyball club, former chair in North West, various other things that some of you will know me for. I'm the person who raised the question about transparency last year.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm afraid I'm still not very happy with what's been produced. I've seen the justification that you've offered for choosing the form of reporting that you've chosen, but there are many other possibilities. And one of the things that I'm not very happy with is that I cannot determine from the results and the report that you've made how income and expenditure are distributed between different activities, and particularly how much is being spent on, particularly on wages and on head office costs. I think in a sport where you rely to a large extent on what I'll call volunteers, but I mean experts, are in the field delivering, I think you really have to get our trust. And to get our trust, I think you have to be a lot more open and transparent than you currently are. I think that also reflects on the proposal for individual membership collection, because you are saying, we'll collect this money and we'll give you 20% back. But if we don't know what you're spending the money on at the moment, and there's no way within your reporting system for us to find that out, how can we trust that that 20% is coming back? If it's being spent at your discretion, why can't we influence it?
Thank you,
Yeah, there are a number of issues that you've raised there, Alan, and it is possible for us to provide more information. Basically, our staff costs are mainly set out by Sport England. We have well I think you can see from the graph that 1.4 million of our funding came from Sport England, and a large majority of the staff costs are actually funded by them. The registration fees that you're talking about and the membership fees currently probably don't even pay for the membership team as they stand. But we can provide more clarity for you in the future, and we'll hope to do that.
Thanks. Brian?
Yeah, it's coming.
Thank you very much for that. I don't know if it's fair to ask you to answer these questions, but I did write to John Borton asking 3 questions, and I'd like to put them on the record today. Whether you can answer them or not, I don't know. John, in the past years, has written back. Question 1 was asking for an itemisation of the total of £16,179 expenses reimbursed to directors during the financial year 2013-14. Second was asking for the itemisation to whom and how much any consultancy fees, fees for surveys and honoraria were paid by EVA Volleyball England in the last financial year and the current 6 months of this year to date. And thirdly, an itemised total staffing costs in the financial year 2013-14 and the total refunding received from Sport England towards this. If possible, could you also let me know the conditions on the spending of their funding that Sport England imposes, i.e. does all this amount have to go to just National Office staff? Could more of it be spent on development staff in the regions, or even a grant in money for other delivery, or for the delivery of or development of non-staffing costs? I can give you a copy, but I think that might be difficult to answer.
Yeah. These questions were I do remember somebody asking some questions of John that he put through to us and asked for some figures on. This was last year, was it? But I did think he'd actually sent a reply to you with an analysis of the figures that we had. Not for the last point, but for the first 2. I wasn't aware that you hadn't got them. But the first 2 questions that you asked, I think you asked them last year, and John had asked us for an analysis of those things. I thought he'd sent that to you.
No, I don't think I did.
He didn't.
Did I?
Yeah, I think I think there was quite a list of a similar nature. But if you could send them to me, we'll endeavour to send you an analysis of all those things.
That will do.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Can I propose acceptance of the financial report 2013-14? Again, using the white cards, could we see all in favour, please? Against? 2. Any abstentions? 2. Thanks, Dirk. Can we move now on to the appointment of auditors? Dirk?
Yeah, we currently have a good working relationship with BDO and propose that they are appointed as our auditors for this current financial year under a fixed remuneration. Speak.
Could I see those in favour? Against? Abstentions? One. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. We're now going to move on. I'll go back to the letter. Sorry. We're now going to move on to the vote on the proposal for individual registration. And I'd like to ask Rohan if he would come and make a brief presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Great to see everybody. I've obviously completely overdressed for the occasion and the temperatures. So, Gerard's just going to fire up the presentation. I've just got a very short four-slide presentation just as a summary and a review of the individual registration proposal. The first two slides really are just a summary of the why, and the final two summary on the how or the what. So we'll just wait for Gerard to fire that up.
The opening of the Queen Battles.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you know, Steve.
Yep. Gerard, I'll just read through my notes. Yep. Basically, the first two slides were going on the summary of the benefits, why we're wanting to implement individual registration. First and foremost, it's around time for a complete information, a picture of who we have playing our sport. At the moment, we have individual registration for National Volleyball League players, beach tour players, sitting Grand Prix players, coaches and referees. That approximates to around 20% of all our participants. So we need a complete picture of everyone who's participating in the sport to be able to make informed decisions and have a complete idea of who is playing, age splits, gender splits, ethnicity, all the things that will help us make informed decisions about growing the sport in the future. It's about having the ability to communicate with all of the participants in the sport. I was at a regional AGM last week where one of the representatives said that they'd only received the information on individual registration the day before that meeting, even though all the information had been sent to clubs about 5 weeks previous to that and had been on our website and across social media. So that automatically told me that we don't have mechanisms and we don't have a very good way of communicating directly with each individual player or each individual participant who's actively participating in our sport. So if we had the ability to communicate with those people, that person would have been fully informed weeks before that AGM. So wouldn't have been coming to a meeting almost blind and uninformed. So again, communication timely and with the right amount of information going to the right people. We think we've consulted and listened to the wider volleyball community in developing this proposal. It's been 18 months since the last EGM. A lot of very good feedback came from that. 9 volleyball voice sessions around the country. either head office staff or board members have been to 12 regional or local league AGMs in the past 3 months, where a lot of good information and feedback has been coming back. So we've been listening. A few of the proposal aspects had been changed based on some of that discussion and consultation. So, you know, one of the key things that we've tried to do is provide benefits to the players, but benefits to the club environment as well. One of the key things was around funding streams. If you want to charge an individual registration fee, what about money back to the clubs? Well, one of the key things from that item was a club incentive scheme, 20% of all revenue being available for clubs to apply for grants. What about for our players? Now, a lot of people said, well, you know, that's a great list of benefits, but I've got BOOP or I've got this, doesn't mean anything to me. What about the actual players? What about the people that don't have the ability to jump on a private health scheme? What about the players that don't want to wait 3 weeks to go and get NHS physiotherapy? All of those things that you might think is unimportant to you, but do the actual players think is important to them? So around consultation, around finding out exactly what players and the clubs want. And we've also acknowledged an issue around payment and the financial side of things. Back in April, a couple of clubs, namely one of the local clubs here, Hermitage and Dark Star, just over in Derbyshire, identified the issue that clubs had already started their AGM processes and AGM meetings and had started applying fees for the coming season. And we're coming with this proposal very much at the end of the AGM season. So we understand that. We understand that's going to be an issue for clubs. So we changed the proposal based on that feedback to defer any payments required till the end of December. So clubs and individuals would have around 5 months to develop the fees. So I believe that we have done a very good job in consultating over that 18-month period. It's not just been the last 4 weeks over the AGM period, it's going back across that 18-month period. Also on finance, who's going to fund all the activities that you've said that you want us to do if we don't do it ourselves? You've seen in the AGM the huge big spike in terms of Sport England funding. Right? Their funding is very targeted on certain activities. We can't divert that money into other areas. So take, for example, the under-17 girls that just got back from Acapulco, finished 9th in the world. Where would have they finished if they were a fully funded team? We gave them some funding, we helped them out, but if they were a fully funded team that we could have made the decision that we would support them fully, could have they finished 8th, 7th, maybe break into the top 5? We've got an FIVB level 2 course in Kettering in a couple of weeks. Wouldn't it be great if we as a sport could identify some talented coaches that we wanted to fully pay for to go on that course? At the moment, we can't do that. We don't have the revenue, disposable revenue to do those things or make those sorts of decisions. When I was down in Surrey Orcas contacted me and said that they want to install two courts instead of having one normal. They want to go two courts that way. They've asked for a Sport England small grants bid. Unfortunately, those grants do not fund drilling holes into floors or line markings. If we had our own revenue stream from individual registration, we could make our own rules that could be fully funded through the club incentive scheme. It's our money developed through volleyball for volleyball, so why can't we make the rules to suit ourselves outside of any other organisations? And then lastly, volleyball must start to value volleyball. Third parties are already doing this. Think about the Invictus Games in September. £26 to go to watch volleyball for a day. £13 for a half-day session. Meanwhile, we get a hard time by daring to charge £10 for the National Cup finals or the Super 8 finals. Other organisations are valuing our sport more than we value our sport. And to me, that really does need to change. In terms of the key aspects of the proposal, what's going to be new? As I mentioned before, we have already got registration for about a fifth of all the participants in the sport. We need registration and details on the rest of the sport. So this shouldn't be new to anybody. Mandatory registration for regular, regional and local league players with those fees, and by that definition, definition meaning weekly or fortnightly. You're actively involved in the club all the time playing. We know there's a lot of casual players that would come in and train weekly, but are they suiting up every weekend to play for your club? If they're not, then they're a casual recreational player. They fall outside of what we're proposing. What doesn't change? And a lot doesn't change. No fee for schools, FEHE and under 16s. And this is also, we changed this for the proposal. Tameside, not here today, but Tameside in our meeting that we had up in the northwest said, well, you're making a demarcation between under 18s in education that play for a club and under 18s that are in education that play for a school. That doesn't make sense. And we went back and we analysed that and we said, yeah, that's right, it doesn't make sense. So we've dropped the fee for under 18s who are in education. If you're in school and under 18, there is no fee. If you're employed, if you're a working person and 17 years old and playing volleyball, there will be a £5 fee. So part of the consultation, as we listened, there was a pretty heated discussion, wasn't there, Brian? All right? And we went back with that and we said, okay, yes, there is a slight anomaly there that we need to address. NVL, sitting volleyball Grand Prix, beach players, coaches, referees, again, nothing changes. This is already a process in place that is well used and has been around for many, many years. And lastly, club affiliation and competition entry fees and process, again, not changing. So a lot of what is actually happening today continues as normal. Again, I go back to the very, very first point I made. It's about the complete picture of who we are as a sport. And we just don't have that at the moment. And we can't progress, we can't move forward without that. And that is just the review. As I said, it was just very quick, just a review on the key benefits to us as a sport and the process, the methodology of what's being proposed. So,
Thank you,
Brian?
Rohan. You just want to stay
Yep.
there for a moment. As Ron's already said, this has been well trailed around the country over several months, not just over several weeks. So I don't intend to allow a major debate, but I will allow a couple of speakers for and against the motion, if anyone wishes to speak.
Can I ask a question?
Yes?
Keith Nichols. I'm representing a number of clubs in the Eastern region on both sides of the argument, but one club has come forward with a question which they've asked me to put. You estimate the income will be £69,000, that's in the documents.
Yep.
And after costs are deducted, 20% will be put into the club scheme. Presumably the costs of collecting and administering the registration scheme are fixed, admin staff, system upgrades you talk about and so on. 2 points to the question. What is the estimate for these costs? And what are you predicting the 20% sum actually will be? And the second point was, if the income generated is below the costs, will that mean there'll be no payback to clubs? And what part of the Volleyball England budget will have to pay for that loss?
Okay, number of questions there. In terms of the 20% that would go into the club incentive fund, what would come out before that is ring-fenced is actually only the variable fulfilment costs. So all the fixed cost will be met by the overall program and Volleyball England. So in terms of what that is, it is the fulfilment of the membership card, the pack, which at the moment we've negotiated with a third party to do all those fulfilment services for pennies basically. So in terms of the actual number based on the projection, it would be very, very close to that, around £19,000. And this is all based on 100% take up of the registration process, because we know that it would be predominantly based on trust and the initial process, so it would be very, very much on those numbers. So
And if you don't meet the targets,
if we don't meet the targets, well, we're going to be working very, very hard to ensure that we do meet the targets. But,
okay,
Yeah.
I'll just ask.
Any other questions? Charlie?
Charlie Alton, President of the Regional Commission, Chairman of the London Association. I've also been sitting on the Volleyball England Leadership Group over the last year, discussing some parts of this. But what I'm really concerned about is that the leadership group has not discussed the implementation of this scheme. And I don't believe that we're in a position yet to actually implement this scheme. I don't think we've got confidence in the software and the office procedures to actually deliver it in the office. We haven't decided how it's going to affect the clubs or the regions running leagues. Who's going to enforce it, how it's going to be enforced. You know, if one team in my league haven't paid their affiliation fees, am I going to be told they've got to lose their games? We don't know what the procedures are. There is a lot of discussion to be had yet, and I don't think we are ready to have this discussion here at the AGM. In fact, the board meeting said that the implementation has a lot of discussion to make. And we need to have that discussion before we bring this item to the AGM for approval. I don't think we're ready to approve this motion yet. We need more time to prepare the implementation of this. As somebody, you know, I've talked to my regions. A number of the regions have got this information. Why isn't Volleyball England working through the regions just to gather the information? You won't get the money that way, but we can get the information from many of the regions. The South West, they're doing it brilliantly. South East counties, they're doing it. London are doing it. West Midlands are doing it. Lots of the regions are actually collecting this information now. But Volleyball England doesn't seem to want to work through the regions, through the counties, to collect this information. Does anybody actually come and say, can we have it, please? I don't think so.
Thanks, Charlie.
Okay. Well, a number of issues then. In terms of the process and systems, I go back. 20% of all of our participants are using a registration system that is working. NVL players, coaches, referees. I've used it myself as a newly trained referee, coach rather. It worked for me. Go on, register, all my details online. I get an automatic email back to say I've registered. I go on, I go to my the members site of the Volleyball England website. I've got all my details there. I can update everything that I want. I can go and find out what membership benefits I have. So in terms of registering players, registering people, and the back-end systems, it is there. And for five or six different groups of our participants, we do need to do some software tweaks to roll that functionality out to the entire club network, but it is there. The functionality is there. 20% of all our participants are using it. In terms of some of the other issues, we've discussed this on other occasions. It comes back to me to Data Protection Act issues, and we as an organisation would need to be 100% sure that those regional, the players on those regional databases have given their approval to have their details sent to a third party, even though we are part of the whole organisation, we would be a separate named party that they need to give authorisation to you or whatever other region to have their details sent to us. And that is a job of work that we would need to do if we were to go down that route of basically pulling the information up from the regional or local associations.
Thank you, Rohan. I'll take one more question. Jeff?
Jeff Allen, and again I'm representing both for and against, so I've got partly questions here. For under 18s, even though they're not being charged a fee, they'll still need to register?
Yes.
So clubs will be expected to get permission from the parents in order to pass the details across.
Yeah,
So that's an admin process for the clubs.
Yeah, and when part of the proposal was to minimise the data fields required to assist with that, so it would be name, age, and gender. No contact details at all has been mentioned in terms of requirements coming through to us.
And similarly then for adult players, why couldn't clubs just provide name and email address? You're going to be contacting these players anyway, so you could get the rest of the information from that point of view.
It is a potential, but again, it comes back to data collection. Who's best placed to know about your players? It's the clubs. Going back to my experiences as a club coach and a club official, I would have a full list of all of my the details on my players available, because I knew I had to send that to a regional and national body. And for my own club development, I would mandate myself to have that sort of information. So we believe that those 5 fields that we've named should be absolutely mandatory, that a club official should be pulling for their players as standard, and should be relatively easy then to provide in a CSV file or upload via a website.
But as we know, clubs gain and lose players throughout the year, and so a club secretary is going to have to therefore keep sending 5 fields, is it, each time they get new players? That's quite a burden on a volunteer as opposed to professionals in the office, which is unfair. The other point is on the costs. Wouldn't it be better for the clubs, or for the player to only be charged £8 rather than £10, and therefore the fees are staying with the players, and there's no 20% process of giving grants out, because it's causing admin for the national office, it's causing admin in the grant application process for the clubs, so all we're creating is more admin.
But again, go back to what the volleyball community said that they want from us as an organisation is club development opportunities, funding, ways that they can develop, ways that they can tap into funds that other external bodies don't allow them to do. Okay, yes, we could go down that route, but again, that then cuts off a benefit or something that the club network says that they want us to try and work on. But yeah,
but for a club of 200 members, that's £400 potentially. Better to keep it within the players, that club.
But then
That's always presupposing that they actually collect the money.
Yes, but the players have to pay.
Yeah, but you mentioned about them paying 8 as opposed to 2. That's always presupposing that the club actually collects the other 2. Only then would we be able to use that for developmental purposes.
But we know that players get to a limit of how much they're willing to pay for their sport, and if they're paying that extra 2 over to the National Association, we're pushing the clubs on their collection problem, trying to collect.
Thank you, Jeff.
okay, right.
Thank you, Rohan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brian. Is it possible to ask a clarification question on something that Brian said?
Yes, quickly. Yep.
Dave Gunter, representing Wessex Volleyball. Did you say that if you've got under 18s, there's obviously a data protection issue, and collecting information, you wouldn't have information that you could then contact those players? Because to me, when I looked at registration, that looked like a great opportunity. I've got lots of players I work as juniors, and Volleyball England never contacts them. They've got no method of saying, look at this brilliant sport, this is what you could be doing. Surely we should be trying to find a way, if we are having individual registration, so we can actually contact the players that are under 18, under 16, under 14, through their parents, to actually enthuse them about the sport.
Yeah, there was a little part in the original proposal, I
Yeah.
believe, that it said parental consent, contact details
Mm.
upon parental
Because I
consent.
think we're missing a massive opportunity if we can't contact those players somehow to try and keep them updated with the
Absolutely.
sport.
Social media is a great
Yeah,
way to
yeah.
contact them, but we need to
Yeah,
be able to,
but
a way to engage
I think
them.
making a way that we could,
Absolutely,
yeah.
take your point.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Quick one, Lenny.
Procedural question.
Yep.
I think everyone in the room understands, as we did 2 years ago, that member information is essential to us. We are underperforming in terms of we don't use our commercial strength, advertisers, etc., etc. So that data is absolutely vital to us. 2 years ago, the issue was about cost. Rowan and his teams worked hard to get member benefits, but I'm fairly clear that those member benefits aren't number driven because they're being given anyway. The procedural question would be, is the vote going ahead as is without having the ability to amend it on the basis that the costs that are being asked for, the £10, the £5, whatever, I'm not clear how that's going to be enforced and what the consequences for clubs or players or leagues are if it's not going to be enforced, in which case we run the risk of a two-tier environment which is slightly better than where we are at the moment, but possibly not as helpful as it could be. So the question procedurally, is the vote going as is, or is it subject to amendment?
No, no. In answer to your first question, the procedural part of the question is the the motion will be put as has been presented already, because that is the way it is set down in the articles, and is not liable to modification. I've been asked that question by several people ahead of the event, and again this afternoon. So it will be done in that particular way. So we have to do it in this particular way. Okay.
No more questions allowed?
No, I want to move to a vote now, Brian, if you don't mind. And I apologise if I didn't see you behind the column, Lenny.
I was fairly sure expand that.
No, a few more pounds. So, in order for us to move to the procedural part of the special resolution, I need to read out formally the changes to the articles of the association as follows. Article 37.2 will be changed from, it is a condition of membership for affiliated individuals other than club members that they each be fully paid up in respect of individual subscription payable pursuant to Article 39. Club members must be fully paid up in respect of the membership fee or joining fee payable to their club. That is changed to, it is a condition of membership for affiliated individuals that they each be fully paid up in respect of the individual subscription payable pursuant to Article 39. Club members must also be fully paid up in respect to the membership fee or joining fee payable to their club. Article 31.9 needs to be changed from affiliated individuals other than club members and not, for the avoidance of doubt, honorary life members shall pay an annual subscription called individual subscription to the association. Changed to, affiliated individuals and not, for the avoidance of doubt, honorary life members shall pay an annual subscription, individual subscription to the association. And finally, defined term 1.12, club members, changed from those individuals who are members of clubs and who have paid the relevant membership or joining fee to their club needs to change to those individuals who are members of clubs and who have paid the relevant membership or joining fee to Volleyball England and their club. Okay, so there formally are the changes to the articles of association necessary to implement this motion. As far as voting is concerned, we now move to the slightly complicated part of the process, where we're going to work with the coloured cards. So if I can ask members to use the yellow voting cards from envelope number 1. So, can I ask those to show for approval of the resolution? What we will do, one more procedural item, is once the votes have been collected by the tellers, the votes for, the against and the abstentions, they'll move to the table behind the glass panel behind you to count them, and there'll be a slight delay in proceedings while they count them and then present us with the results. Okay? So if we can have a show of the yellow cards for the motion, please, for collection by the tellers. If you could hold them up. Okay. Can I now have a show of the yellow voting cards against the motion, please, for collection by the tellers? There aren't enough colours in the rainbow, Alan. Bearing in mind some of the other things. I'm sure it'll work. Why complicate matters any further? You.
Daniel.
Do we have any abstentions? No? Right. We'll let the tellers get on with the counting. No, we'll wait. Are we all warm enough? Those of us in shirts and ties are warm enough, aren't we, Jeff? This is where I should have worn a pink polo shirt.
Brian, just a little
Sure.
procedure whilst we're waiting.
Sure.
This is a special resolution,
Yes.
so this requires 75% of the majority.
Greater than 75%.
Greater than 75% to go through.
75, it fails.
Okay.
There's 126 votes to count. Take time. Well, even though mine is 100, Sorry? That's presuming there was. Just sort of wind it down and get the numbers. What's everything? So bank of Jim's head. I'm sorry for the delay, but it's worth waiting as it's very important to a lot of people in this room before we move on. But it still wouldn't make any difference because it's what 57.9. So even the 2 votes wouldn't even bring it to 60. Okay. Attention. We have the results in. The yeses 73 votes. The noes 53 votes, no abstentions, but that clearly means there were 2 votes not cast somewhere down the line. But 2 votes wouldn't make any difference because the yes votes only amounted to 57.9%. So the motion is denied. Okay, thank you. We now need to move on to the election of officers for the forthcoming year. And first of all, I'd like to deal with the election of the Honorary President, setting out the term of his office. I propose the acceptance of Richard Callicott as our Honorary President, who has been nominated by the board. Can we use the white cards? Can I have all those in favour? It's good you become with a friend. 26. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Now moving on to the election of the rest of the officers. What I propose we do, which is we've done in previous years, is that for all of the we take all of the uncontested nominations first, and we take them en bloc. I'll read them out, and then we can hopefully, if you're in agreement, go straight to a vote for those en bloc. Okay?
Has it got to go that way, Mr. President?
Sorry?
Chairman, has it got to go that way? Could it be done individually?
Yes, if you wish. If you wish to do it individually, it will take longer, but
Yeah.
you wish to do it individually? Does anybody else support that?
That's fine.
Just before moving on, apologies, we ought to just confirm that the term of office for Richard
Yes, sorry.
as our Honorary President.
Yes, we.
Apologies, we should have confirmed that.
Yeah, the term is it needs to be determined by the membership. The board is proposing a 4-year term, which it has approved. Is everybody in favour of the Honorary President serving for 4 years? Two. Any against? 1. And any abstentions? 1. Thank you. Okay. There doesn't appear to be a great deal of support around the room, Brian, for you. I mean, there were another 2, but
That's why I'd make that 3 then. You didn't really ask for a show of cards.
well, let's have a show of cards then for voting en bloc. All those in favour of voting for all of these uncontested nominations en bloc? Don't think there's a need for a count. Any against? 5. 5. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we take them en bloc. I'll read them out. Development Director Will Roberts, Marketing Director Delvin Lane, Technical Director Steve Matthews, Playing Director Jefferson Williams, Schools and Youth Development Commission President Maria Bertelli, Competitions Commission President Paul Bohannon, Referee Commission President Steve Evans, Regional Commission President Charlie Orton, and Performance Commission President Ben Pipes. Can I see those in favour? 25. Against? Abstentions? 1. Thank you very much, and welcome to all those just recently elected. We're now going to move straight on to the President, where we have 2 candidates, Jeff Allen and Netta Minard. We have already indicated to them that they have the opportunity to speak, and we will give each of them 10 minutes to speak and make a presentation to the meeting. Jeff, if you would like to go first.
Up there? Oh, here.
You can take the lead.
Good afternoon. I'm going to give you a short synopsis of who I am, what I can offer as President, what I'd like to see achieved. In my career, I was Finance Director of a multinational group of companies for 24 years, including 4 years chairing its largest company and travelling overseas. I stepped down last year to a non-executive director's role, working just 2 days a week. When asked if I'd stand as President, I sought the opinion of several valued and experienced volleyball colleagues about the role. They felt that I had the knowledge and experience, but stressed that it was very time-consuming. Working just 2 days a week allows me to give the commitment needed to fulfil the role of President properly. As well as having the necessary commitment and extensive experience of business management, I have great depth of experience in virtually all areas of English volleyball. For those of you who don't know me well, I'll run through all 47 years, briefly. A player since I was 13, both indoors and beach. A coach for 43 years, to beginners, boys, girls, South West and England South boys. 23 years Women's National League, 17 years Men's National League, plus a spell as England men's assistant coach. I've also been a Volleyball England staff tutor for 33 years. And I'm also a qualified referee. I started Wessex Volleyball Club when I was 22, creating its multi-school junior programme, developing close links with Bournemouth University and Leaf and other local schools, and chairing it since inception. So, although some fantastic volunteer coaches and administrators have taken on much of the workload, I fully understand and appreciate the challenges of volunteers running a volleyball club. I founded the Sandbanks Beach Volleyball Festival 20 years ago and still direct it now. I've been chair of my local association, Volleyball Dorset, for the last 18 years, a member of the South West Committee, and currently on the Dorset and Hampshire Investment Zone Committee. Nationally, I've been marketing director, playing director, finance director, honorary vice president, and been a member of Schools and Youth Development Commission for many years. Whilst a director, I liaise with Sport England on occasions. Internationally, as well as my involvement with England men, I've studied volleyball and have volleyball friends in many countries. But please understand, if I found my role as President of Volleyball England conflicting with my local roles, I would give priority to Volleyball England. If I had the honour of being elected President, these are some of the things that I would like Volleyball England to achieve. I know most of the directors, commission presidents and candidates for these positions well. I have great respect for their abilities, ideas and work ethic, and I'm sure that if elected, we would work well together. It would be one of my aims to help them succeed in their roles. We have to balance the medium-term needs of achieving our Sport England KPIs with the long-term needs of our sport. At the same time, we need to develop strategies that meet Sport England's needs and are the ones that you, the members, want to buy into. Our major funders are Sport England. Whilst we need to continue trying to increase funding from other sources, much of the National Office's work, quite understandably, has to go towards achieving the targets agreed with Sport England, as well as servicing the needs of our members. Therefore, the board and our clubs need to address some of our longer-term needs that Sport England won't fund. In this room, I see many dedicated, talented people who who are willing to travel hundreds of miles because you care about our sport. You're still involved, playing, coaching, refereeing, administrating, etc. But many others drift away. To help grow volleyball and become more successful, I want to get some of these people involved again. We need to try and increase involvement by more people like yourselves, either people with vast volleyball knowledge and experience or new people with fresh ideas. Many volleyballers are professionals in their working lives, and we need to tap into that expertise. For example, a commercial group under the marketing director's remit, consisting of people in senior positions within business who want to help us improve our commercial activities. We don't have the commercial value of the major sports, but our national competitions and national teams do have a value. To improve volleyball's engagement and contribution to developing volleyball, we need to give them a greater voice. I believe that everybody should have a say in their sport, whether they're a player, a coach, referee or administrator. This means individual membership with a vote, not just individual registration. I would therefore work towards bringing proposals to the 2015 AGM for individual members to be given a vote. Our pyramid structure, from grassroots participation to high performance volleyball, needs to be strengthened. We need a broad base of young players to feed into our clubs and universities and to develop top-class adult teams. Here are 3 areas we can improve. We're one of the best sports around for youngsters aged 10 to 14, with many advantages over other sports. As well as our team ideals and strong sporting ethics, there are a few sports you can adapt and keep a class of 30 children happy and active in a small school gym. However, because 10 to 14 is outside Sport England's target age group, we're paying less attention to it, even though most of these youngsters will be within our target age group by the end of our 4-year plan. The loss of focus from this age group is already showing an alarming drop in entries for our National Under-15 Championships. However, the primary school premium and satellite clubs are ideal funding for this. Secondly, we need to improve access for our youngsters, not at major schools or clubs, to receive good coaching through regional or divisional squads. Thirdly, we need to further develop our junior competition structure, for example, by restoring the interregional junior championships to their former glory. We're all frustrated that funding for all of our indoor, beach and sitting national teams has been removed. However, to give our top players England teams to aspire to, we need to enable the national squads to start training and playing again. 2 ways are: work with other team sports and, where possible, politicians to convince UK Sport and Sport England that this country's sporting legacy needs to have a pathway beyond the Rio Olympics, and team sports bring a lot of social events that individual ones don't. Secondly, find sponsors for the national teams. As I mentioned earlier, GB Women went out and found sponsors in the build-up to 2012. We need to go and do the same. I would like to help clubs and universities who are largely run by overworked volunteers. What can we do to make your club easier to run, become bigger, better, more successful, and gain a higher status within your local community? And finally, I would aim for open and transparent policies. We've grown considerably over the last few years, led by an outstanding president in Richard and our extremely dedicated and able Chief Executive Lisa. Behind them have been high-quality directors and commissions and some extremely capable national office staff who go out of their way to develop volleyball and help our clubs. However, some volleyballers think Volleyball England is just the national office and the board. Yes, of course, these dedicated people are all part of Volleyball England, but so are all of you. Players, coaches, referees, administrators are all a vital part of Volleyball England as well, and we need everybody to appreciate that. I'm not ambitious for myself, but I am for volleyball. No individual, including me, has all the answers, but by listening and consulting, volleyball can become stronger. We are a major worldwide sport. We have some fantastic volleyball people in this country. I would work extremely hard to get us all working together so that we drive our sport forward and make it better for everyone. Thank you for listening.
Annette.
Thank you. It's not always easy going second when you probably said a lot of the things that I'm thinking about, and that's good because it does show some cohesion across the sport. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a delight to be here. As Brian has said, my name is Annette Minard. I'm the Executive Principal of the Leaf Campus in Bournemouth. The Leaf Campus is a multi-academy trust. We have a nursery, we have a primary school, a secondary school, and a new free school, which we have just recently opened. We've had a multi-million-pound investment, which has opened in September. And what that does, it actually specialises in two areas. One is stage and screen, and one is high-performance young elite athletes. The reason the multi-academy works so effectively is strong governance. We have one directors board which actually works across all the schools and the whole campus. And by having one clear strategic vision, it's enabled us to make sure that through economies of scale, that through shared expertise, shared facilities, one very clear vision, that we have produced a very successful federation in Bournemouth. You may then ask, what is it that I want to get from this and why I'm actually interested in it? I am very pleased to see that volleyball itself does have a strong, coherent strategic plan. Otherwise, we wouldn't be getting our funding from Sport England. So congratulations for getting the money that's needed for us to develop at grassroots level, for us to be able to work with communities and to increase our participation. Because without that, we can't develop and grow. So that's a tremendous strength that I think we've got. I do believe, however, that we need to enhance that by having outlets for our high-performance players and a very clear pathway through which absolutely defines how players can progress from clubs through to regional, divisional and national. We do need older teams that can represent England at a national level. We have to be asking what comes first. Is it actually the good player who then comes into a good team, or is it the good team that attracts the good players? I don't actually have the answers, and I'm sure most people in national governing bodies don't have it either. But I think what we are sure of is that if we're going to be successful, we do need both. For a thriving community, we need to see that our young players know where they're going. What actually happens nowadays is volleyball is more than a hobby for many of our young people. In fact, sport in general is more than a hobby for some very determined young people. We've only got to look at all those young players who gave up their homes, who gave up their jobs, who gave up their studies to go and play abroad just for the chance to be in the Olympics and be recognised by this country and represent this country. So there is a drive, there's a determination that already exists, and we need to find a way of establishing that outlet for all our players. If we actually look at the system that we've got in place at the moment, we need to improve our communication. We need to make sure that everyone in here is completely empowered to have a say in how we move forward. As I talk to various people at different activities, I do believe that there is an air of change. I do believe we have reached a tipping point. And that tipping point arose through Sport England's aspiration for a self-evaluation to take place through Volleyball England. That appraisal has resulted in change. And you can feel that change. It's a very productive change that's taking place at the moment. However, change is always quite frightening. It makes people apprehensive. It makes people concerned. It's also a very exciting opportunity. Change can be good. Change can make things thrive and develop. So we are at a stage now where all of us can really make a contribution in how we move forward. It is important that we stop making excuses, that we stop seeing ourselves as a minor sport, as a sport that's actually not played much in school, that we don't absolutely see ourselves as something that is exciting, dynamic, and really enjoyed across the whole world. We are a major part in that. I do think it is vital that we realise that if we carry on as we are, we could lose more funding from Sport England. They've made it very clear how they are going to allocate their funding. They've made it very clear that there's no compromise. It's payment on results. And we need to be sure we can get those results, because that's what other sports are doing. And if we don't absolutely lift ourselves up and recognise that we can also do the same, we are then just going to spiral downwards and we will never get the funding. And it then becomes a vicious circle of how do we get ourselves out of that situation and raise our standards and be seen as a high profile, high attaining sport. In education, we talk a lot about removing barriers. How do we remove barriers to attainment? How do we remove barriers to high aspiration? We are very fortunate in volleyball. We already have so many of those barriers removed. We have a very good number of women playing volleyball. So many sports, gender identity, belong to one or the other. We have women and men all playing sport together. We have a strong grassroots development level, whether you can play sport socially, you can play it for fun. We also have a good injection of foreign people who come to the country. It's a good way of them meeting friends, joining in, and they bring with them the experience to us to enable us to improve our volleyball as well. We have sitting volleyball, and we make sure it's inclusive. We understand it, we have empathy with it, and we absolutely give it the status it requires. We have beach volleyball, we have indoor volleyball. We have tournaments played on grass. We have 4x4 tournaments. We have a whole range of ways of making this game accessible to a wide public. It can be a hobby, it can be sociable, but it can also be a strong and dynamic sport. And what we must avoid is going up and down. We must make sure that we have a rise going forward that will enable us to make it to the top and stay there. I do believe in this country we can actually do that. How is it all going to happen? I know very well that the funding isn't there. There isn't money in this country at the moment, certainly not in sport. We know that. We cannot wait for handouts before we decide how we're going to move forward. We've got to be very clear about what it is we want and make every effort to get there. We need commercial interest, commercial strategies. How can we raise funding in our own right that goes right back into the game? How can we network, form partnerships with other organisations who perhaps have very similar targets to those of our own? 2 small pots, 1 large pot. Let's see if we can work together. There's got to be sustainability in all the actions and all the strategies that we impose. We don't want to put money into something that as soon as that money's gone, it can't carry on. We have to be pump priming strategic, sustainable movements that will take volleyball further forward. We have to look at income generation. And most importantly, we have to look at non-financial movements forward. Sometimes it's human resources. Sometimes it's shared facilities. What can we do to share this depth of understanding and knowledge that we already have in our community? How can we utilise that to the full? And sometimes it's not about finances, but it's about that depth of knowledge being shared across for the benefit of all our players and all our young people. I believe this is a dynamic time for volleyball. I believe we can really make a difference to those who are playing our sport. And I believe if we all work together, we can have a very clear pathway through that encourages young people to stay in our sport, to become the very best. In fact, if they work really hard, they can become a professional in our sport. And that all of that together makes this a wonderful sport to be involved in. I do hope you'll consider me for the post. I believe I would like to be involved in this dynamic movement, and I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. Annetta. I'd like to now move straight to a vote. This time we will be using the green vote. Is it green in envelope 2? Yep, the green voting cards in envelope 2. If I can ask you to show those in favour of Jeff Allen first, please. And those in favour of Annetta Minard. You can talk amongst yourselves for 5 minutes again.
So what's the follow-up song?
I don't have a joke or a song. Well, not jokes I can repeat in mixed company. My word, you're getting faster. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Obviously, practice means they're getting better. It's a lot quicker this time. Yes, the votes in favour of Jeff Allen were 66, and in favour of Annetta Minard, 50. So Jeff Allen is the new president of Volleyball. Congratulations. Right, moving on to Vice President. Again, we have two candidates for the role, Lenny Barry and Keith Nichols, both of whom are fairly well known to most people in this room. Again, we are allowing them 10 minutes each to speak. If I could ask Lenny Barry to speak first. Thank you, Lenny.
Thank you, Brian. Good afternoon. My name's Lenny Barry, for those of you who don't know me. I was going to have a fantastic Wizzy presentation, but the technology wasn't working for me. I'm not going to take 10 minutes of your time. You've read my statement on the website, hopefully. Some of you will know me, either as a coach, as a referee, or an administrator, or an organiser. And I would pick up some of the themes that Jeff and Annette mentioned, that volleyball is changing. How we help that change, how we move it, where we direct it, is down to the members. It's not about the office, the board, and others. All of us are Volleyball England. We should be working cohesively and collectively towards where we want it to be. Inevitably, there'll be differences of opinion. That's going to be the case. But we need clarity. I wouldn't pretend to stand here and say, if I was elected Vice President, this is what I'd like to do, because we're sitting in the middle of a 4-year funding round. Our plans are already written. We have to deliver what Sport England are paying for. That's the rules of the game, and we have to make sure that we achieve that. Lisa does a fantastic job with her team to get that money for programmes, but we don't explain to the wider audience what those programmes are for and how we connect them up. For me, I find that disappointing and frustrating. It's fabulous that 26 people have turned up to our annual general meeting to be able to have a vote, and there's 126 or whatever the figure was votes through proxies. So we're slowly but surely building the engagement of our members to be involved in our decision making and our processes, to say, where do you want it to be? That can only be a good thing, but equally it possibly increases the diversity of the range of opinions. So the likes of our high performance athletes would love to get back to the Olympics. I'd love them to be back to the Olympics. I was in 2012 and it was fantastic. But UK Sport fund that, and they say it's not possible at the moment. Sport England, in their current round, are saying it's participation. But all of us would like to have that participation from people who've never played before, from schools into clubs, playing locally, playing regionally, playing National League, and playing in our national teams. How we achieve that on a limited fund is very, very difficult. We have to be clear on our priorities and possibly explain those priorities to colleagues to say, this is what we're doing and why, and how we've come across and how we've done it. Equally, it's a time of change because of the changes to the articles a couple of years ago. We're having to lose a number of directors because of rotation, because they've done their 8-year terms. I would try to remember them all, but I'd probably forget some. But the likes of Brian stepping down, Richard stepped down, Janet stepping down. Have I missed one? Marjana stepping down. So there will be a change of people on the board who will bring new knowledge, new experience, and new discussions. And again, that can only be a positive and powerful thing. I made a decision to offer my services to Volleyball England's board. Having been on the board in 2005-06, you've seen that I've also been on the boards of other large sports providers, and I had an agreement with my wife and my employers to make sure that I had sufficient time to be able to do the things that I would need to do as Vice President. Volleyball England is very fortunate to have two very good candidates. I wouldn't pretend to say otherwise. The choice is down to the members. Hopefully, the choice will be to enable Volleyball England to progress, to build, to develop, to move forward. My only aspiration, if I was elected Vice President, would be to try to improve our communication with our members. 3Touch does something, E does something, but we can do a lot more, we can do a lot better. Every single volleyball person that we meet should be able to understand what we are doing, why we are doing it, and where we are on that particular journey. Equally, I would also say, whether I'm elected or not, I would ask Volleyball England, the board in particular, to say, individual membership didn't go through today, but that doesn't mean we can't collect the data. We need to understand who is involved in our sport, work with the regions, work with the clubs. Club education is absolutely essential. We have 432 clubs, I think, who pretty much work in isolation, but we can be better together, working cohesively, because every bit of media that Tamworth Spartans gather helps volleyball. It's not about getting on the BBC, we'll get there in time. It's all the little bits added together and people understanding why that is beneficial to them as a club, as a player, as a member of volleyball. I offer my services. I hope I can do you a good job if elected, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lenny. Can I ask Keith Nichols?
Dear Keith, thank you for your letter asking why you didn't get any court time in the recent national squad matches. I believe that being a member of the national squad is an honour and a privilege, but it carries responsibilities. First of all, you have to observe how the squad works, how the whole programme works. Then you have to go to the matches and absorb the preparation, the atmosphere, the tension and the stress. And finally, you have to understand that you are not Keith Nichols, you are a member of the squad. I believe that riding the bench is an essential part of becoming a national team player. Yours sincerely, Dave James, national coach. I got the letter and I thought, wow, down there, boy. But when I thought about it, and I've kept that letter in my volleyball scrapbook, what he was actually saying were three key things which have impacted on my coaching and in my professional life. You observe what's happening, you absorb it, and you try to understand it. Now, I've tried to put that into my coaching, and I've tried to put it into my professional life. Some of you know that I was involved in starting with a clean sheet of paper and no money, and building a £20 million community sports centre, highly successful in the numbers of people who use it, very successful in money terms, so able to reinvest £9 million in doubling the size of it. And I think the reason for that is because I followed those principles, and I worked out what I thought the customer actually needed: quality, affordable, excellent facilities. So they got what they needed, I got what I needed, 1.2 million visits a year to make it pay. Now, it's disappointing, the result today of the proposal. What was good was about 25% of the membership in clubs actually cast a vote. But what the association was wanting, unfortunately, wasn't what the clubs felt they needed. And that's the mismatch that we've got to sort out. As we've heard from other candidates, the board, at the behest of and prodding for Sport England, has reorganised itself. The new groupings, the way it works, headquarters staff have been radically changed. We've made all these changes, but what we haven't done, and I've been in the game since 1966, you need a few more fingers, Brian, before you can work out how long that is. And we still have the same structure: a club and a region and a headquarters national body. We haven't moved to try to square the circle, or whatever you want to use, to try and make it such that we all work together holistically. We heard that 20% of the membership are paying a fee. Now, if I was a businessman, I'd say there's something wrong there. 80% of your membership are not paying. And when we asked them through this to pay, the message came back, we don't want to pay. I don't think they don't want to pay, I just think we haven't got our act together in how we present it to them. We haven't involved them. Now, I've been on a long career. I started as a player and then a club coach, and I had an escalating career, but like all things, you get to the top and then you come over. 20 years going up and 20 years coming down. My role in life now is coaching my 16-month-old grandson how to play volleyball. But in that time, nothing has changed. Now, we are driven by Sport England and the whole sport plan, as we were in previous plans. It's understandable. They are paying. But if we would have a free choice with the same amount of money, how would we spend it? Probably not that way. And as night follows day, the next whole sport plan will probably have a completely different set of criteria. I mean, just like we had a British programme, we spent all that money and it's been thrown away because of a change of policy. But we still got 80% of our people not actually contributing. What we need to do is to try and involve those people. To me, we've done the structure of the board, done the structure of the head office. We haven't done anything about the structure of the game. Now, some of the clubs that asked me to represent them said, we run our own league, we have no contact with Volleyball England, why should we be doing something? No, that's wrong. They're only playing because people like everybody here taught somebody who refereed and coached and so on. But they don't see that. So we have to do something about it. And I think that my role as a vice president, there are all these people with their specialisms. They've got their commissions to think about and to work for. What I'd like to do is to try to embed in the strategies those three core principles. We observe, we absorb, and we understand, and then we come forward with a proposal. I know that I'm only one person on the board, and one person can't change everything. What you can try to do is influence. And I hope that I'll be able to influence people in that respect, and that when we come back, as we will have to come back, with an alternative proposal, it will come back, and it is what the clubs and the individuals feel they need, and they will buy into. That's a difficult process, but he's obviously made a lot of progress in that, going from everybody against it to the numbers on the floor today were for it, but we still haven't managed to get that 80%. Thank you.
Thank you, Lenny. Thank you, Keith. I'd like now to move to a vote. And you're now looking at envelope 3 with the very light wishy-washy blue coloured cards. Can you hold up the cards in favour of Lenny Barry, please? Can I now have the cards held up for Keith Nichols, please? For the third time, you can talk amongst yourselves. There were a lot of times Okay, thank you. Order, please. The vote is in. For Vice President, the votes cast for Keith Nichols were 86 and for Lenny Barry 28. So I duly declare Keith the new Vice President of Volleyball. Right, moving on. We now move on to the International Events and Competitions Director post, where Lenny once again is standing along with Rob Cook. I would like to give both the opportunity to speak for 10 minutes. You're on first again, Lenny.
This alphabet's a bad
Thank you, Brian. Good afternoon. Seems like a year since I've been here. No, it's only a couple of minutes. First of all, I congratulate Keith on his election. I'm sure he'll do a fantastic job as Vice President. Clearly, it's always disappointing to lose an election. However, I made a decision to stand for competitions as well. Some of you may know that I'm a competitions commissioner. I'm responsible for the National Cup Commission, and I've been that for the last 14 or 15 years. Competitions is probably, he said biasedly, competitions is probably the most important post of all, because all our aspiring players should at some point be looking towards to compete and be involved and participate in a Volleyball England competition. And that's what we want to try to do. My role as Competitions and International Events Director would be to support the Competitions Commission to try to ensure that we get the appropriate level of competitions, that we get them funded, we get them promoted, and we get the uptake so that people are actually taking the products that we're offering. Last year, 18 months ago, we commissioned a competitions review because, as Keith had said, we're quite good at doing what we've always done because it's always been there and that's what we always do. But we have to ensure that what we offer is relevant to our customers. If the customers buy by entering the competitions and the numbers are going up, then that's good. But if the numbers are not being met and the numbers are dropping and it's becoming more expensive, we have to challenge and question what we do. And sometimes that gives us hard choices and hard decisions. But it also gives us opportunities for innovation and to challenge what we do. For me, in my business life, I work for HMRC and we are always trying to do better. I'm sure many taxpayers would say we could probably do better, but we do try. The one thing I would want competitions to do, and if I was able to be elected as competitions director, I would try to do better, is to ensure that we work in a joined up way. So Maria Bertelli is sitting in the back there, catching my eye, I'm avoiding her, but as Schools and Youth Development Commission President, I'm expecting that commission to be encouraging schools to participate in our competitions, whatever they may be, whatever is relevant. Personally, I would believe in flexibility in terms of if London has a particular need, a particular solution in a particular event, they know London. Let them do it. If it's different in the southeast or the southwest, why would we be prescriptive? We want participation. Our current quadrennial funding from Sport England is all about participation. How do we get people in? If they come in at a young age, they enjoy, they have a good experience, they move forward and they'll go into age group competitions, and eventually they'll play as adults in local, regional and national leagues, even national teams. So that has to be joined up. So the playing director may have aspirations for national teams, and competitions should look to support that in terms of what competitions our players are playing in that will achieve that goal. And that continuum of from school child to recreational player to developing player to better player to national team player all has to be managed constructively and together. Currently, that doesn't always happen, and that's something I think we could try to do better. International events is the other part of the job description. Most of our international events we bid for are given by CEV or FIVB, and they set the criteria in how we deliver them. As I said, I've done competitions, cup finals for the last 15 years. I worked my socks off in 2006, the first time we were given the World Championship qualifiers. We had a fantastic event, and we have a lot of good staff and volunteers to help us deliver that. Again, I'd look to try to increase the number of volunteers involved, because our office colleagues are getting more and more dragged into things and not being in the office, which isn't particularly helpful. Whether it's a paid workforce or a volunteer workforce, it's a volleyball workforce, and we should be working together constructively to deliver the best we can. And I think it was Keith that said, how do we square a circle? To me, we deliver events, but the bit that's missing for me is what happened with that event, what benefit did we get, why did we do it, did we achieve our objectives, and should we be doing it again? How do we build on this? That's the really important thing. We are good at events, and I was particularly impressed with Rob's CV on international events management. Absolutely fantastic, and hopefully we can gain from that experience in some way. But making sure volleyball delivers constructively together, build our competitions, because that's our core. If you look in the finance pages, the second largest income after Sport England is competitions. And yesterday, I had the headache I have every year of starting to do the cup draws. In the cup, for the first time in living memory, there's over 100 teams in the cup. Sorry, Dirk, you're there. Over 100 teams got. It makes a scheduling nightmare, but it is up 20% from last year. That's just a little bit of effort, a little bit of cajoling. Lots of non-national league teams have entered, which means that Volleyball England is getting its message out into the regions and people having a look at that competition, and hopefully Volleyball England will see them participate in national or regional competitions and build our sport. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope I can serve you well.
Rob?
Thanks, Lenny. Here's where we get to test the technology out to see if it will work. It's yeah, it's just being forward, isn't it? Yes, it works. There's always a first for everything. First, I'd just like to thank Lenny for welcoming me here to the AGM today, and we had a great conversation just before we started, and I think we've very much agreed on a couple of key points, which is about communication and consultation with members and through the associations, and involvement in those members, and making sure that whatever events and competitions are put on, that they have significant impact for the sport, that they're not just put on and brilliant events, which Elaine says the capacity is there to do that, but the key thing is that there's a real developmental legacy from every single event that goes on, because there's such a significant investment in time in that. I returned several years ago from Singapore, and when I returned, I wanted to contribute some of the skills and experience I gained in Singapore as head of international events for Singapore Sports Council in a sport that I've always been passionate about and played in school and a club as a junior, and currently play recreationally. Yes, I'm the new boy on the scene. Very few of you will have met me. I know several of you. But what I want to bring, hopefully, is a breath of fresh air and that experience that I've gained in that role. So some of the things that I was involved in Singapore out there was the first ever Youth Olympic Games in an event delivery capacity, the first ever Asian Youth Games, the World Netball Championships, the Singapore Marathon, And all the different facets of these events, from broadcast to sponsorship to the actual delivery of them, and bringing them in the first place was the key role that I had. And delivering on the calendar of events, the initial calendar of events that was approved for the next 20 years going forward. Because we need to look way ahead in terms of what we want to do within the game. And we're supporting over 30 different national governing bodies in Singapore on exactly that, when they bring in events, making sure that it has the maximum impact in Singapore at that time, in this case in England. So I hope to bring that experience. And I hope to bring the experience that I've gained prior to that and currently in my roles now, which is largely in and around sports development. Participation, leadership, inspiring the next generation of young people to be the best that they can be, to be the best leaders, volunteers, officials, players that they can be. I fully understand all of the Sport England products, and we operate and support all of those Sport England products in my current role. A very strong partnership there. But as been mentioned many times, that's only one thing. And I've got an understanding of the full range of development from participation through to performance. If voted in today, here are some of the things that I would look to focus on. We need to look and review and regularly update a review on the international event strategy, working with the Competitions Commission across all commissions and other groups to ensure that all events and competitions benefit all members of Volleyball England and they make a significant contribution to the development of the sport. To work closely and consult with the 9 regional associations as representatives of those clubs. To build and maintain strong partnerships with funding and other key partners. Yes, UK Sport, Sport England, continue the strong partnership with CEV, FIVB, sponsors, other commercial partners. To link major events and key competitions to the development centre that we have, the FIVB CEV Development Centre. To continue to strengthen international relationships, to have conversations about not just bringing in CEV, FIVB events, but also look at creating events, creating exhibition matches, and looking at the full range of options that we have. And most importantly, as I said before, to maximise the legacy benefits of major events and key competitions. And I think the only way to achieve that, obviously Lenny has alluded to it as well, is by consultation, collaboration, utilising all the skill sets that we have in this room and beyond, in participation, in performance, in coaching development, in developing officials, and developing the whole industry that the sport can bring as well, through consultation, collaboration, utilising the unique opportunity we still have with the development centre across sitting, indoor and beach. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lenny. Rob, I'd now like to move to the vote. Can you hold up, we're now in the rusty red coloured cards, been out in the rain. For Lenny, please, if you can hold the cards up for Lenny Barry. Thank you. If you could now hold up the cards for Rob Cook, please. For the 4th time, you can have a little interlude. Is yours an abstention? Abstention.
I think you should, even if it's I don't know what we do not have
You're getting quicker and quicker. You are indeed. Okay, thank you. Perfect, thank you. Thank you. The voting is as follows. Rob Cook, 69. Lenny Barry, 46. I duly declare Rob Cook the new President of International Events and Competitions. It will come as a major relief to know that that concludes the election of office for 2014. Can I thank everyone today for their contribution, particularly the speakers. It's not easy standing up and presenting yourself to the audience, but I'm going to do that now. Can I take this opportunity before I hand over to the new President to take the chair to say a few words of my own. Firstly, I would like to thank all those directors who've stood down this year and who have all contributed significantly to the development of volleyball in England. Marzena Bogdanovic as Marketing Director, Janet Inman, who has served as Director for many years, 14 I think, and in particular led the Child and Vulnerable Adult Welfare Initiatives on behalf of Volleyball England. No small task. And finally, Wayne Coyle, who only recently resigned his position as President, but who during his short reign was proactive in leading Volleyball England through a period of significant change and was inspirational within the leadership group. As for myself, this will be my very last meeting as an officer of Volleyball England, and it's time for me to say goodbye. Not a cue for a song. I will be stepping away completely from any influencing role, having already stepped down from Referee Commission and my positions within CEV as a Champions League Supervisor and European Beach Tour Technical Delegate. The only volleyball activity I will remain is my work as a referee observer, but again at a much reduced level. Having spent over 34 years in and around the top table, I have made many, many friends, and they have all enriched my life, and for that I thank them. In particular, I would like to make special mention of Richard Callicott and Bernard Kilkenny, who have become two of my closest and best friends and who I respect immensely. As for the future, I'm sure I'll find something to occupy my time, or my wife will find something to occupy my time. As for volleyball, I hope the new board and commission presidents go on to make wise and informed decisions and will enable the sport to grow. Never ever be afraid to take risks or step into the unknown. Never. Thank you. Thank you for that. It's now my great pleasure to ask the new President, Jeff Allen, to say a few concluding remarks. Jeff.
Thank you very much for all those who supported me. I feel very privileged to be leading Volleyball England. I've worked long and hard, as you know, for the sport, and I hope that your support you find is justified at the end of the day. I would echo Brian's words about Janet, Marjana and Wayne. I actually felt that Brian deserved a standing ovation because he has put in so much effort over the years that we owe him such a great deal. So thank you, Brian. We've had a lot of staff here today, and if you're like me, I don't actually know many of them. I wondered if is it possible you could just come forward and just say your name and just your role within Volleyball England. It would probably help all of us. Give you in turn.
Minus the jacket, sorry. I'm Sandra Andrews, I'm Finance Officer.
I'm Howard Thompson, I'm the Membership Administrator.
I'm Daniel Thompson, I'm the National Volleyball Centre Coordinator.
I'm Sam Harding, I'm the Participation Manager.
You've all seen me, I'm George and I'm the Finance Manager.
I'm Alex Henderson, I'm Lisa's PA and I'm bringing to the board.
I'm Rob Payne, I'm the Volleyball Relationship Manager for the Black Country in Staffordshire.
I'm Jared from Smeaton, Membership and Marketing Manager, and I'd like to say one little thing more. A good applause for the two camera people who were already standing for 2 hours in this heat. Thank you.
I'm Ian Poynton, I'm the Membership and Funding Officer.
Some of you know me through Wigan Seahawks, but I'm the Volleyball Relationship Manager for Greater Manchester, and it's Steve Kerr.
For the few that don't know the room, I'm Martin Lindsay, this is my item.
I'm Audrey Cooper and I'm an alcoholic. After the technical and talent side.
Introducing before Rowan West, Participation Director.
Lisa Wainwright, a chocoholic.
Thank you. For me, I can now put a face to a name. That's very useful, hopefully for many other people as well. I look forward to working with the new management team for the association and the commissions. If anybody has views on volleyball, I hope to set up a special Volleyball England email address, and I welcome your thoughts and your views on how we go forward. Won't necessarily pursue them because the board may not agree, but every input is vital. So that'll be coming out in newsletters, magazines, and so on to you. Understand the board is meeting afterwards. Are the commission presidents meeting as well or not? Right. I would like 2 minutes with the commission presidents as well before that meeting, if possible. Thank you. Right. One more thing? Yes. I think Richard wants to add one more thing before I close.
He just wants to close that.
No. I've enjoyed banging it now. I've got one or two words I'd like to pay in tribute to my white-haired friend from Workington, who's got so much time, and I don't know how he's going to spend it in Workington, because as you know, there's not an awful lot to do apart from admiring the lakes. And if you read his Facebook page, you'll see that he gets up to all sorts. But it would be quite wrong of us as a national governing body to ignore the contribution that Brian has made to our evolution and development for the last 34 years and 2 months, I believe. Not only has he been vice president specifically for the last 8 years, but he filled in before that as an acting president. And he's been an ever-present servant of the organisation and the sport over that period of time. In fact, there's not an awful lot that Brian hasn't done within the sport. Not only has he already outlined his role in refereeing, he tried a junior development program with his son as a referee. He played, well, allegedly, and the fact that he was prepared to give up and retire early from his full-time job and to take on the job of the Beach Volleyball Services Manager in London 2012 is a tribute to the fact that his commitment was total. He's a recipient of the Peter Wardell Trophy. The Peter Wardell Trophy, as you all know, I hope, is the highest award that this organisation can give to any one person, and I was proud enough to be able to be the presenter to Brian on that evening. He's been an international referee, quite apart from his role as a CEV supervisor and a beach volleyball technical delegate. I found a quote from one of his bosses. He used to work for Chorus, allegedly, and then later Tata Steel. So those of you that read his constant blogs from the Indian subcontinent until he was told to stop sending the blogs by his then boss, quote from his boss, "Brian was a good strategist, and not only found, but won millions of pounds worth of business for Chorus Tata Steel." So his international sales manager's role, somehow he fitted in to all the work that he did for volleyball. I would like to ask you to join me in saying that this organisation, this governing body would not exist were it not for the contribution that people like Brian make to this sport. And I would like to say that Brian has helped moulded us into the organisation we are today, and for that he will have an eternal place in our gratitude. So, Brian, thank you. For your information, it's a decanter with the name of Brian and from Volleyball England with a card, and in order to use it properly there will be a small bottle of something which you can pour into the decanter.
Small? Yes, well, I said all I wanted to say before. I didn't expect this. This will get well used, I can assure you, in about 4 hours' time when I get home. It will be forever empty, because I will constantly empty it. I've said everything I wanted to say. I promised my wife in 2012 I would pull away from volleyball. I've spent 44 years married, and she stayed at home and allowed me to do all the things that Richard has just described to you. So she deserves a bit of my time now. She's going to get it. I'm not so sure she's ready for that. In fact, I think I heard her whispering to one of her sisters that she was trying to find me another job, but I'm not sure that's true. No, she stayed at home and allowed me to do everything that as I said, that Richard has said. So she deserves a bit of my time now, and that's what she's going to get. So thank you again. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
I declare the meeting closed. Thank you. Thank you. Look forward to it. Yes.